Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a whole slew of recent sources. We've got articles, research bits, insights covering tech, business, science, and really the people involved in it all. Our mission, like always, is to cut through all that noise, pull out the really key nuggets of insight for you, make sure you walk away informed without needing to wade through everything yourself.
That's the plan. And we've got some pretty meaty topics today, things like potentially huge changes in how big companies might handle money soon. There's also this really complex story about what happens to sensitive personal data when a company goes bankrupt.
Right.
Plus some direct tech risks, the absolute cutting edge of AI stuff, and what's happening with the tech workforce right now.
It's definitely a lot to unpack, but some fascinating connections in these sources. Let's just jump right in. Okay, so first up, something that could genuinely affect how you pay for things and how some massive companies operate. The sources are saying that huge multinational players, think Walmart, Amazon, names like that,
Yeah.
they're looking into, maybe even seriously talking about, issuing their own stablecoins.
Yeah, and this isn't just like a whim or chasing a trend. The motivation is massive. These companies pay absolutely staggering amounts in traditional payment fees. Visa, MasterCard, every time you use a card, they take a cut. For companies moving the kind of volume Walmart and Amazon do, that adds up to billions with a B, every year.
Millions in fees. Wow. Okay, yeah, that makes sense why they'd want another way.
Exactly. So a stablecoin could be a totally different payment rail for them if they can get customers using their coin. They essentially sidestep those traditional fees. It's a way to potentially save billions and maybe just as importantly, get more direct control over how money flows within their own stores and websites.
Control and data, I imagine.
No, absolutely. The data alone would be huge. Imagine owning the payment process for your own customers.
It sounds like they're basically trying to compete directly with Visa and MasterCard then. But, creating your own currency, even if it's pegged to the dollar, that's got to involve regulators, right? It can't be that simple.
No, not at all. And that's a crucial point the sources bring up. This isn't just about tech. It's deeply tied to policy. The viability of these plans seems to really hinge on U.S. legislation. Specifically, there's this bill mentioned, the Genius Act. It's apparently working its way through the Senate and House. Its whole purpose is to set up clear rules for stablecoins.
So hang on. The idea of maybe paying with a Walmart coin or an Amazon digital dollar actually depends on politicians in D.C. passing a specific law.
Pretty much. It really shows how tangled up tech innovation, corporate strategy, and government regulation are now.
Yeah, even the biggest companies can't just roll out their own money without some kind of green light or at least clear rules of the road.
Exactly. The future for these potential corporate stablecoins is tied up in legal and political processes.
What's your take on that? Would you personally consider using a retailer stablecoin? Say if it made checkout faster or maybe shaved off a few cents. It's just a really interesting potential shift. Really shows the value locked up in payments.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on from future money. Let's talk about a different kind of valuable asset and a company situation that raises, equally tough questions. Personal data. The sources look at what's been happening with 23andMe, the DNA testing company. They went through bankruptcy recently.
Right. A lot of people know that name. Maybe even use their service for ancestry or health reports. They filed for bankruptcy. And the latest news, according to the sources, is that Anne Wojcicki, she's the co-founder, was the CEO. She's actually the winning bidder for the company's assets.
But she's buying back her own company, or the poor parts of it anyway, through her nonprofit.
Essentially, yes. It was a bit of a bidding war situation. Initially, Regeneron, the biotech company, looked like the winner in the auction. But then Wojcicki's nonprofit, called TTAM Research Institute, put in an unsolicited offer after the auction technically closed. That reopened the bidding. And Regeneron decided not to go higher, based on their own valuation.
Okay, and the price tag from Wojcicki's nonprofit?
$305 million. And the sources point out something interesting. If this sale actually goes through, equity holders might get some money back. Apparently, that's pretty rare in bankruptcies.
Suggests the assets are considered quite valuable then. Which brings up the big question. What exactly are these assets worth $305 million? The sources are clear on this, right?
Yes, very clear. The main, most valuable asset being discussed here is the genetic data from millions of customers.
Right. The actual DNA sequences, health info, family trees, all that incredibly personal stuff people sent in, assuming it would be kept safe.
Precisely. And this hasn't gone unnoticed or unchallenged. The sources mention a major lawsuit specifically trying to block the sale of these assets. The argument is basically against transferring this super sensitive genetic data as part of a bankruptcy sale.
That lawsuit really gets to the heart of the conflict, doesn't it? You've got the company needing to sell assets to pay debts, maybe give investors something back. But on the other side, you have millions of people whose most private data is the main asset being sold off.
Yeah. And stepping back, this whole 23andMe situation really shines a light on these thorny issues around data ownership, privacy, especially for data that's sensitive, like our genes. What happens when the company holding it goes under? What rights do users really have over data they've shared? These are huge questions we're probably going to see more of.
It definitely makes you think twice about the long-term life of the data we share online and what happens when companies hit rough patches. It's not abstract, it's our personal information. Speaking of data impacting you directly, let's look at a couple of other incidents from the sources. Things hitting users right now. First, a bit of bad news on the cybersecurity front. Zoomcar, the Indian car-sharing service, they had a pretty big data hack.
Yeah, substantial is the word, affecting a lot of users. Sources say around 8.4 million customers' info got compromised. And it wasn't just like emails, it included names, phone numbers, even car registration details. That's stuff you really don't want out there.
8.4 million users.
Yeah.
And yeah, those details are very specific. The company's working with law enforcement as you'd expect, but the data's already out. Just shows how vulnerable everyday services can be.
It's a nonstop fight for companies trying to protect all that data. And breaches, sadly, just seem to keep happening. For users, it's just another reminder to be careful about phishing or scams using leaked info.
Right. Now, on a different note, but still impacting user experience, WhatsApp. The messaging app pretty much everyone uses.
Ah, yes. WhatsApp's big draw for years, compared to others, was being ad-free, right?
Yeah.
Just pure messaging. A lot of people liked that clean experience.
That's about to change.
Looks like it. Sources say they're planning to introduce ads. Now, hold on, they're not putting them in your chats, apparently. They'll show up on the status page. You know the part where people post temporary updates? Kind of like Instagram stories?
Okay, so not interrupting my conversations directly, but ads popping up where I used to just see my friends' updates.
Correct. And what's really interesting here is how typical this pattern is in tech. You see it again and again. Step 1, grow like crazy. Offer something clean, free, maybe ad-free, get a massive user base.
Get everyone hooked.
Exactly. Then, once you've got the scale, phase 2 kicks in, monetization. And for consumer apps, that usually means ads.
Feels almost like a script now, doesn't it? Build the audience, then bring in the ads you might have initially promised wouldn't be there. Makes you wonder where else ads might pop up eventually. Is the status page just the start?
That's the million-dollar question for users, isn't it? It really highlights that trade-off. Free service now, maybe pay later with your attention or a changed experience.
Okay, let's shift gears from user impact to the real cutting edge, how AI itself is being built. The sources get into some developments with large language models, specifically these multi-agent systems.
Yeah, this is a really big area of research. It's trying to get around the limits of having just one giant AI model do everything. Sources talk about Anthropic's approach, for example. They call it an orchestrator-worker pattern. Basically, imagine a main AI. The orchestrator gets a complex task. Instead of tackling it all alone, it acts like a manager.
Okay.
It breaks the task down and sends pieces out to multiple specialized subagents to the workers. They all go off and do their specific bit of research or processing at the same time, in parallel.
So it's not one giant brain doing everything sequentially. It's more like a team of specialists working together, managed by a lead AI.
That's a good way to put it. And the sources say this approach gives a serious performance boost. For really complex research tasks, these multi-agent setups apparently blow away even a single top-tier model like Anthropic's own Opus.
Wow, okay. That's a big deal. It suggests the next leap isn't just bigger models, but smarter systems of AIs working together. Why are they so much better?
Well, by splitting up the work and maybe having agents specialize, like one for searching, one for summarizing, one for writing, they can cover more ground more thoroughly than one agent trying to do it all step by step. But there's a catch. This power comes with a cost. The sources mention these systems use way more tokens. One example, like 15 times more than a normal chat.
And more tokens means more computing power, more cost to run, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, they can do much more complex things, but they're also a lot more expensive to operate. That's a key challenge for actually using them widely. It's not just about smarts, it's about efficiency, too.
Building on that, what about the specific things these AIs can do? The sources mentioned some interesting tests, like trying to figure out where a photo was taken, geolocation.
Yeah, that was a fascinating test. They used unpublished photos, which is key. It means the AI couldn't just recognize a famous landmark from its training data.
Right, it had to actually deduce the location from clues in the picture itself.
Exactly, like an AI detective, looking at things like building styles, plants, road signs, maybe bits of text on a shop front, using all those little visual hints to figure out where the photo was snapped.
So how did they do? Was the AI detective any good?
Surprisingly good, actually, in some cases. OpenAI's latest models, the sources said, did better than Google Lens in these tests.
Yeah.
They were better at piecing together those subtle clues and making more accurate guesses than competitors, who often just got, like, the right continent.
That's pretty impressive reasoning from just a picture. Almost human-like deduction.
It definitely shows a jump in visual analysis skills. But, and this is a really important but, the sources stressed, did they nail it? Nope. The sources were explicit. All the models they tested still hallucinated. Even when they got the location right, they'd often confidently make up details about why, mentioning landmarks or features that weren't actually there.
Ah, the hallucination problem again. Confidently wrong, even when being partly right. It's such a persistent issue. And wasn't there something weird about the deep research mode in these tests?
Yeah, that was really counterintuitive. The modes specifically designed for more in-depth analysis actually performed worse on these geolocation tasks than the standard versions.
Worse. That makes no sense. You'd think the deep dive mode would be perfect for this. Any idea why?
The sources didn't give a definitive reason, but you could guess maybe the deep mode overthought it, went down rabbit holes, or maybe its way of combining information just isn't suited for that kind of pure visual deduction compared to the standard mode's approach. It just shows that even with the same underlying model, different settings can lead to really different, sometimes unexpected results depending on the task.
It's a good reminder that even as these AIs get incredibly capable in some areas, things like reliability, sticking to facts, and performing consistently, well, those are still major hurdles. Brilliant detectives 1 minute, making stuff up the next. Okay, let's bring this back down to earth a bit. Let's talk about the people, the humans, actually building and working in this tech world. The sources touched on the software engineering job market. What's the vibe there?
The assessment was pretty direct. The sources described the market as being in a pretty bad place right now.
Ooh. Yeah, that's quite a shift from just a year or two ago when
Yeah.
it felt like demand was infinite.
It really is.
Well,
Layoffs, hiring slowdowns, way more competition for open roles. It's changed things. But even with that tough market, the sources still say engineers have this unique ability to provide extraordinary leverage and productivity if they have the right approach.
And how's AI changing that leverage?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. It's apparently easier than ever now for engineers to automate the boring stuff. Instead of grinding out repetitive code or scripts, they can prompt an AI to generate solutions for those annoying, time-sucking tasks.
So AI is becoming a tool for the engineer, freeing them up from drudgery to focus on harder problems.
That seems to be the idea. It potentially shifts the job away from just writing every single line of code towards maybe more high-level design, prompt engineering, figuring out how to use these AI tools effectively.
Makes sense. Now, related to the people side, the sources also brought up ageism in tech, referencing a Hacker News discussion. Still an issue, apparently.
Yeah, seems so. Despite years of talking about it, the sources suggest it's still very much a thing. Older, experienced workers bring a lot to the table, obviously skills, knowledge, but companies can still be hesitant to hire them.
Why? What reasons came up in that discussion?
A few things. Salary expectations are often one experienced people usually cost more. Another was stronger work boundaries.
Meaning,
Yeah.
they're less likely to work crazy hours or answer emails at midnight, which sounds healthy.
You'd think so, right? But that seemed to be part of the discussion. Also, sometimes their seniority or, just being direct can apparently intimidate younger managers.
Interesting team dynamics there. And what about younger workers? How are they perceived in contrast?
The perception mentioned was often that they're more flexible, maybe more willing to just build whatever without question.
Right, that idea of being more malleable.
Yeah. So you've got this tricky job market, AI changing how work gets done, and then this persistent ageism issue tied to perceptions about cost, flexibility, boundaries. It paints a really complex picture of the human element in tech today.
Definitely shows that alongside all the futuristic tech,
Yeah.
some very old school human and economic challenges are still shaping the industry. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here pulling these different threads together. We started with that potential massive shift in payments, Walmart, Amazon, looking at stablecoins, but needing that Genius Act to make it happen.
Right. Then the whole 23andMe situation, the bankruptcy, the founder buying back the assets, and the huge, huge question mark over the genetic data of millions of users. Very complex.
On the more immediate impacts, that big Zoom card data breach, a stark security reminder, and WhatsApp planning to put ads in status following that classic tech monetization path.
Yep. Then we jumped into the AI deep end. Multi-agent systems outperforming single models, showing a new direction for AI architecture, even if it costs more computationally.
And the AI geolocation tests amazing deduction skills, but still plagued by hallucinations. And that weird result with the deep research mode performing worse.
And finally, back to the people. The tough software engineering job market, how AI might change the work itself by automating tasks, and that persistent issue of ageism tied up with salary, boundaries, and team dynamics.
Taking it all in, these sources really paint a picture of tech as this constantly churning engine, innovating like mad, hitting complex business and ethical walls, and always impacting us as users and workers.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there one particular thing or maybe a connection between pieces that really stood out to you from this dive?
And maybe for everyone listening, if you step back and look at the speed of all this AI capabilities jumping forward, company strategies changing on a dime, regulators trying to keep up, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In an environment moving this fast, how do we actually make sure that all this progress lines up with keeping users safe, sticking to basic ethics like privacy, and ensuring there are fair opportunities for everyone involved? That's definitely something to chew on.